Hi guys, Blacksmith here. I'm going to talk about something that I keep getting asked about at the moment, which is how come betting MMA is so profitable. I mainly bet the UFC rather than regionals, just because there's so much going on with the UFC. It's hard to bet that and the regionals. But the reason I like the UFC in particular is because there's more attention on it and it makes it a bit easier to read where the casual money is. And to be honest, it can just make it easier for you. If everyone is talking about a particular fighter who's going to win, let's take this example, Rebellis Despaigne. Recently, everyone was talking about how he was a lock, he was going to win in the first round, to bet him by KO. That was a big red flag for me. I went into there, I bet Cortez Acosta, and we had big cash in VIP. It's not as simple as just fading them. That just highlighted that fight as one that could be a really big fight to focus in on. So I did some extra tape study on it and I drew my attention to it. It's kind of hard actually because there wasn't that much tape of Rebellis, but when you've been watching MMA for so long, there's a pattern that forms, which is inexperienced fighters going up against seasoned professionals who've been fighting at a much higher level. They often fall short of expectations. But the UFC likes doing that because it makes the loser learn faster. So if they've got a lot of potential, it will get them there, or it will expose them potentially and get them out if they're actually not the real deal. That's just one example of why it's easier than mainstream sports, because there are particular narratives and rumour mills that make things easier. You can do it with other sports. This happens all the time. You'll see it within football, where there's a big narrative going around about how an underdog is going to get an upset and they always get hammered. And you know to fade the public underdog. This is basic stuff. But for MMA, the simple fact is the sports books cannot set the lines using data, and that's what they do the majority of the time. I never believed that they actually did this, but I won't say for sure that they do it this way, but the way they should set the lines is have someone who's an expert on the sport looking at them and analysing them. I do not believe they do this for every fight. Maybe the top fights they do. For Dustin Poirier, Islam Makhachev, for example, I think they got the lines perfect, and then they started spreading the rumour through journalists and through media that they own that Poirier was going to get the upset, that Poirier was going to get a guillotine finish, he was going to knock Islam out. He did actually quite well, but we always knew he was probably going to lose. But a lot of people bet on the losing side, and this is what they do. Sportsbooks have people who write for them who basically are paid to tell you the opposite thing's going to happen. But with UFC, the books set their lines using data. It's how they do it with every other sport. They look at all the times that the teams played each other last year and this year, and they use that data to be accurate, to know what the game is going to look like. They can't do that with UFC. In the UFC, fighters don't fight each other every year. Fighters can stay in the same division and never fight each other. And they can be active for years and just never match up. So it's very difficult because you can't just say because one fighter beats one opponent, that means they can beat anyone who that person's beaten. That doesn't make sense because there are different styles to MMA. So it makes it very hard. So MMA is more of a subjective sport. But I still see the books setting lines using data only. Sean Strickland and Costa, they did this. They looked at their records and said, I believe they looked at Strickland's record particularly and said, this guy gets a lot of finishes, or he gets finished when he's fighting high-level competition. He's been finished recently by Dricus, also been finished by Alex Pereira, two of the hardest punchers in the sport, by the way. His fight with Dricus, didn't go that way. But there have been other times where in his most recent fights, he got finishes or been finished. So they've looked at it and said, averages are out, he doesn't actually go a full 5 rounds. He doesn't even go a full 3 rounds often. He often breaks his opponent down. Sometimes it goes to decision, yes, but he does get finishes or gets finished. Sorry, I misspoke there. And then same thing with Costa as well. And when I saw the line, it was at 275 when I tipped it to VIP. I could not believe the line. Stylistically, those two fighters are going to go the distance, I would say 7 times out of 10. Both have got great cardio, both have got good chins. they can go against each other. Yeah, they're going to be really puffing by the end because they're going to set a high pace, but they can get through it. We've seen them both do it a lot of times. We've seen Costa do it numerous times, actually recently going 5 rounds, and we've seen Sean do it. But I think they just look back through all of their fights and they said they get a lot of finishes, this fight probably isn't going to go the distance. And they set that line using some sort of algorithm that was wrong. The way that we get an edge is we go and watch particularly their last few fights, their last 3 wins and their last 3 losses. And that's a lot of tape to watch. That alone is an hours of footage for each fighter, so 2 hours for each. You can fast forward it a bit as well. If you want to get it over quickly, you'll miss some nuance, but overall you can put it at double speed and kind of get a good idea. But also if you're a fan and you're doing tape study every week, you will start picking up on things and remembering from your last tape study. And you can get your notes out, you should be making notes, and then you can see what you did last time when you did your tape study, what you highlighted. And for me, I noticed that when they go up against high-level competition, it almost always goes to the decision. And they're both high-level fighters, in the top 5. It's going to go to a decision. So we jumped on that. We put a whole 3 units on it, and we had a huge cash, easy money. I also tipped it at 0.25, over 0.25 rounds as well. Over 2.5 rounds at about 1. I think it was just about even when I tipped it, and then it went down to like 1.83 on fight night. So we got a double cash. I tipped that in my free group because it was my most confident play. That's just an example. Every week you will find this, but what you have to do is go through the roster of fights, have a look. You will see things that you just realise straight away that don't look right. And then when you do your tape study, you will notice things. You will notice fighters who finish other fighters who have a similar style to their opponent. When the books go through the data, they will not pick this up. They will not know when they look at a fighter, oh, that guy's a grappler, or this person has got a very good wrestling base. They just see numbers. And that's where your context can help. You can do this in other sports as well, like football, for example, because there might be a team that loses 1-0, but actually they could easily have won 3-1. Look at Belgium the other day. They had, 3 goals taken away from them. It doesn't necessarily mean that they're the better team, but I think you could watch that game and say they're probably going to win next time in that matchup. But in football, the teams play each other so much that those random bits of variance actually are accounted for. The data will grind them down because there's so much other data to extrapolate from other games. Whereas in fighting, the guys fight and girls fight twice a year, 3 times a year at most, so there's not much data to go on, and they learn very quickly. Fighters earlier in their career learn and develop. Some fighters stop learning or improving, and then they suddenly start learning again because they change camps. So there's so much subtlety and there's so much nuance in mixed martial arts that you can use it to your advantage, and the books do not know that. I believe they get someone in or some people who set the lines for the big fights, like Makachev versus Poirier, like Conor versus Chandler, which by the way I predicted Chandler would win, and I said Conor was not going to make the fight anyway because he has various personal issues. That line was set at 1.90 odds, ridiculous. Chandler was going to win that all day. I had that as a max bet. I had people still messaging me saying, are you sure? Are you sure about that? Yes, of course I'm sure. And these are people in my VIP who trust me, they know that we've been making money non-stop for the last 3 months since I started, and they still question because Conor's got such a big celebrity, he's got such a big reputation, even though he's not fought well in his last few fights. People still would have bet him, and that just shows where you can get value. If you know you're looking in the right place and you get in early, particularly, make sure you get in early. You want to put your bets as early as possible if you're backing favourites. For underdogs, you can obviously wait, let the lines marinate and get big. And that's how you do it. Also, looking at props, this weekend I've got a bet for the UFC. I've got a double. I've got 2 favourites I've put together who I think are definitely going to win. But there's one favourite. If this double is going to lose, it's because he's going to gas and get finished in the final round. So what do we do? And the chance of that happening are quite low. I'm confident the bet's going to hit. But what we'll do is we put 1/10 of a unit on his opponent to win by finish in round 3, because specific bets have very high numbers. I think this one is at 26 to 1. So even a tenth of a unit will get you 2.6 units profit back. It's such an easy way to hedge. I did this last weekend actually. We had the same sort of bet. So I had Sergey, which was a stupid bet in hindsight, but I had him in a parlay, and I did think he was going to get the finish. I thought he was going to be cautious. He ran straight into Wilson. I knew if that fight was going to go wrong, Wilson was going to submit him. So we had Wilson to win by submission in round 1. Bang, got that, 10 to 1 odds. I also had that bet, and I had the Costa fight to win by submission, because I thought the same thing would happen. I thought Costa would get a submission late in the fight after Nurmabeke gasses, or Nurmabeke could also get the submission if he dominates on the ground early. That was at 20.75 odds, so plus 2,075 odds for you if you're in America. So we cashed huge amount of money. One of my VIPs chucked £50 on that, and they made over $1,200 they got in return. And that was a hedge. That wasn't even a main bet. That was just a small bet on the side to make a bit of money. So if you do your tape study, you will find these outcomes all the time. So the two ways you're going to make the money are knowing which money line to take, which underdogs to back, and which props, specific props. You'll do your tape study and you'll know, this fighter, if they're going to win by decision. So I'm not going to play the money line, I'm going to play the decision. Or this fighter, if he's going to get a finish, it's going to come late in the fight. Angela Hill, a couple of weeks ago, we took her to win round 2 and round 3 because we saw that Luana Pinheiro gasses in all of her fights. She only has a round and a half in her. I thought surely she's going to fix that, but we're going to bet on it anyway because Hill is a veteran. If she sees her opponent is gassed, she will go for the finish. The books had it at crazy odds because they looked at the data and said Hill doesn't finish anyone, she's not going to get a finish. But if someone's gassing out, anyone can finish them, even a fighter who doesn't get finishes. And Hill, a veteran, knew to take it and go for it, go for the kill. If it was in round 3, we would have cashed a lot more money because we had a bigger bet on round 3. But we took round 2 for safety and we cashed it at 19.00 odds, so 18 to 1 plus 1,800 odds. We're doing this every week, guys, in the free group. The hedges that we have, those are made just to protect your bets so that if they do lose that way, you get a refund. But the real money comes in when you start taking these long shots and profiting from them and backing them because you've done the tape study and you're confident they're going to hit. Like with Angela Hill there. I think it was just under 2,000 back from £100. And we knew it was going to happen. I said in my write-up that I did for my VIP group, that's what was going to happen. Luana was going to gas and Hill was probably going to win by decision, but there was a high chance that she would get a finish late in round 2 or round 3. We all cashed tons of money. It's not rocket science, guys. You just have to watch the fights and you will figure it out. Most people are too lazy to watch the fights. But look, if you like MMA, just put it on in the background when you're doing something else and you will pick up on things. And if you really want to make money out of this and make a living out of it, like I've started to do now, that is the way to go about it. It's to watch tape, to put in the work, and you will reap the rewards. You will make a ton of money. I see people all the time making YouTube videos, talking on Twitter about their predictions, saying, oh, I don't do tape study, I just go off my memory. I don't understand why they would even bother doing it. If you're going to do something, do it properly. The tape study is essential. You will pick up on things. Like I always go back and look at the odds to begin with and use my memory and think, what do I think is the right move? So many times after tape study, I completely changed my mind. Doing tape study is essential. Get doing it. Just pick 2 fights a week at first. I say 2 fights because you might do tape study on 1 fight and decide actually the odds aren't good, it's not worth it. So take 2, see if you can find a bet. I guarantee you will find a good long shot that's quite live. And just keep doing that, guys. This is why the UFC is so profitable. My ROI is over 30% for the UFC. For other sports, at the moment, it's sitting closer to 15%, over half. I've been doing it for 3 months, tracked in VIP, so the caveat is I could just be on a hot streak. My ROI may not maintain that high level. But I've been saying this for ages. I've been saying, guys, it is going to come down, and then it keeps going up. So it sits around at 30 to 35%. Come and join my free group, the link's in the description. Sign up for my VIP if you want to get the plays that I'm making. So far, over the last couple of months, we have cashed not just long shots, but parlays as well. I do a monster parlay every week in my free group. Last week was the first week we didn't hit it in 5 weeks. I've cashed parlays at 20 to 1. Last week hit a long shot at 20.75 odds and 10 to 1 odds. Week before that we hit one at 8.71 odds. Before that we hit 16.75, and we got every bet on the card right. We went 9-9 for the UFC. We made so much profit. I made 43.5 units profit in that 1 week alone. That's more than some cappers have made all year. We're absolutely smashing it, guys. Join, come be a part of it, and learn how to do it yourself, because it changed my life when I started actually making money betting on MMA. Any questions, put them down below. Join the free group. Let's have a big weekend. It's Whitaker and Aliskerov. There's loads of money to be made.